Welcome back to Malestrum. This afternoon, Griffin and I are going to talk about a subject that's a bit controversial. And to be clear, we're not trying to be political in this podcast, but we're going to discuss Gen Z males and the impact of what we call the red pill syndrome. The reason it can be political because red pills, and Griffin's going to explain more about this, what this really means, is tied with the alt right in some ways. But in reality, it doesn't matter whether it's left, right, or center. Kids can get lost into very specific algorithms and ways that they begin to lose their own identity by being part of a group. So, Griffin, explain what red pill means. How did the name come about? And what does it really impact as far as Gen Z males?
So, red pill and what that refers to is kind of vague. There's a lot of definitions to it and connotations. It did start in the late 2000s as something far more niche with these men's rights activist blogs at the time. But as we've approached the current year, 2025, especially these past few years, exacerbated by COVID and other factors, these algorithmic platforms such as Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts oftentimes incentivize the most extreme and emotion provoking content that targets people's insecurities. There's a lot of reasons why men are feeling very insecure right now. Red pill, again, a little bit tough to define, but it's oftentimes content on the internet that targets these insecurities. Oftentimes, there's a monetary incentive to essentially targeting people who watch the video, specifically addressing how they feel inadequate in certain ways, and then trying to sell a product, whether it's like buy my course, buy my coaching plan, or literally buy some product to make you look better, or something like that, or supplements. So those are all examples. That's how I define it. Some of it is helpful, which we're also going to talk about as well. Some of it does have positive effects on society, but it's a mixed bag. What do you think about how we define red pill? Do you agree with my definition?
Well, we need to dig in more to why it's called red pill versus blue pill and other things here in a moment.
Fitting.
Okay, well, then if you're a red pill guy, I think unfortunately it does come down to isolation and the core thing that both the right and left do, which is show me your pain and I'll show you a cure. It's particularly prevalent in young men because they do feel isolated. They feel alone. And participating in the group creates a sense of community. The other big thing about it is money. A lot of the sites are highly monetized because they've got tens of thousands of clicks that come in. And the only way that many times you can maintain that kind of social media presence is through controversy or through something that's going to hook someone, clickbait, a title that are alt men Nazis, or the left is calling us a Nazi, or the right is calling us wusses, or whatever that title is. So I think where there's some identity that's probably manipulated is the aura of being an alpha male. I'm not talking about the generation group, but being someone who is not controlled by society, who's strong, sort of the Jason Statham, go my way or I'll beat your ass up kind of thing. But tell us some more about why this syndrome is called a red pill versus something else. Give me your take on why are so many young men interested in this or consumed by it?
Alrighty. I'm sure most of you guys know about the reference from The Matrix in Andrew Tate type circles. There's this mentality of learn my secrets or learn about the truths of how the world works, and that'll open your mind. Just like how when Neo took the red pill in the movie, he discovered he was in the Matrix. So it's like an analogy for that. It's like escape the Matrix, learn how the world really works in different ways, whether it's jobs or dating. Maybe there's some truth to what they're saying there. And, it does directly address insecurities of men who feel alone and isolated. but it's undeniable that it's hyper exaggerated and very misogynistic and oversimplifies issues to I make groups of men feel like they're the victim, and then once again incentivize monetizing practices as well. So um yeah, once again, the reason why so many men are falling down these rabbit holes is, as we've talked about in prior episodes, exacerbated by COVID, men oftentimes don't have the same strong in-person social networks that women do. Of course, there's exceptions. I'm a big advocate for communities and community building, but on average, we see these online pseudo communities like Discord servers of wannabe alpha males. That could put a band-aid on those emotions. They're not in-person communities, they're not authentic. Because of that, it's more of a band-aid than really curing the underlying issue. So there's that. And then there's also, I like to ask you more about your thoughts on this as well. There are some positive effects. A lot of these red pill content creators say, go to the gym, take care of yourself, clean your room. That's a very Jordan Peterson type argument. Some of that's good. It's like general good advice. But oftentimes there's this underlying aura of, once again, misogyny, or like, you deserve better because you're a man, which is not good. Considering the nuance is important of what advice is useful and productive for you in society, and what advice puts other people down or exacerbates your insecurities to make you spend money in ways that you should. Or, once again, there's this alt-right pipeline that friends of mine who are actually, some of them on my university did fall down this pipeline, and then some of them fell out of it, because they questioned themselves some more. So, but once again, it's definitely a balance, and it's important to question what you're consuming, what rabbit holes you're going down, and whether or not you're in an echo chamber. We've talked about echo chambers in prior episodes as well. It's very easy to only consume perspectives that illustrate only one point of view versus something more holistic, or deliberately trying to analyze all sides. So I'd say keep that in mind. What are your thoughts on people, whether it's falling down the echo chamber of red pill content or in general? Do you think that's an issue?
No, I definitely think it's an issue. And I think no matter what political side you're on, whether you're called woke or some kind of extremist on the left or right, the sad thing for me is that it's normalized hatred. It's normalized bigotry. It's normalized misogyny because those are the things that sell. If you feel isolated, or if you really don't have role models, then I think particularly Gen Z males feel that void by going out and trying to find a replacement community. A lot of that isolation they feel, they've got to find a villain. And the villain could be women. The villain could be the government. The villain could be whatever someone's trying to sell.
It's actually playing the victim and putting the onus on other people, blaming, say, minorities, women, people who aren't like you, and blaming them for problems that might be systemic, structural, but at the same time, it's not fair to pin the blame on these people who have nothing to do with you.
Well, that's exactly right. And, it's community. Griffin shared with me a very good YouTube video from 5 years ago talking about how extremes, right or left, get manipulated. If you feel like you're not part of a group, and then whatever the message is, you're brought into the group, and then you begin to question the group, it's easy for at least some individuals in that group to isolate you. In the extremes of social media, that isolation can be a snowball where people are afraid to moderate because they're threatened, either emotionally threatened or, in some very rare cases, physically threatened. I think in a small percentage, it creates something we call keyboard warriors. They have the fantasy that violence is like a video game. For whatever reason, they act out on that violence. One of our upcoming podcasts are going to be talking about young men and violence. Why a lot of young men in their 20s wind up to be these publicized mass shooters. And I'm not saying that there's a direct correlation between the red pill syndrome and those events, but like addiction, like other forms of self reinforcement, it's difficult for some people to moderate. They feel like they're going to be excluded. We're not trying to condemn some of the key websites, but tell me some of the types of content. And I know Andrew Tate is one big symbol of all this. Speak a little bit, Griff, about what types of sites typically draw how many people.
Right now, I think it's more dispersed. It's less so about people having their own website, although we do see that. There's a lot of content out there on YouTube, Instagram Reels, TikTok, etc. Some of it's great, some of it's very healthy. I like my share of self-help, self-improvement type content. I've always been a fan of that, like all my life. But then we get into this extreme where it's less about actionable steps how to improve my life or make things better for myself. As opposed to that, it's essentially, what some people call rage bait, where someone anecdotally had a bad experience with a man or woman, someone of the opposite or same gender, romantically or platonically. Of course, that situation is not representative of all possible relationships, romantically or platonically, but it could be easy for people to make generalizations and to speak as if their bad breakup is, speaks to some larger truth about all men or all women. So, especially with these polarizing rabbit holes and echo chambers online, it could be really easy for some people to fall down the trap of this, all men are trash, all women are trash type content, which is essentially, people projecting their insecurities and their broken hearts and generalizing those emotions to everyone. That's not fair because that reduces complexity and acknowledging all this as our own individuals and the nuance that comes with that. So it's really easy, especially in the age of short form content, to fall into black and white thinking and binary perspectives of it's all this or it's none of that, etc. And that's why I think overall this content oftentimes is a net negative because it doesn't really enable critical thinking on the extremes. But outside of the extremes, I think there are benefits, genuinely good advice, like have a gratitude journal, take care of yourself, etc. But on the extremes, there's content that essentially says things are hopeless for you. So you're inadequate, you can't do anything about that. That's the other extreme. And of course that's not true, but if you're surrounded by an online community that exacerbate those feelings of, inadequacy and you can't do anything about that, if you tell yourself that and other people around you reinforce that mentality that, taking action is futile, then of course you're going to feel worse. You're down this horrendous rabbit hole of spiraling negativity. So that's why it's essential that we pay attention to what we're consuming and how we feel afterwards, because I very much try to stay off short form content, which might be ironic because maybe we're going to clip this for short form content, but I really try to stay off that. YouTube Shorts is not bad, but Instagram Reels makes me feel really bad every time. So, and I think that's because even though I try to be aware, I try to be cognizant of the content I consume, Instagram Reels is just a very malicious algorithm, I think. Watch us post this to Instagram Reels as well.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. It's sad when an internet subculture becomes a cultural meme. Again, being the old business guy here, I think a lot of it is driven by political message on either side and monetization. Controversy gets clicks. People that look at a lot of short form content, TikTok and Instagram are perfect examples because we're all algorithm driven. Once we look at a subject, we're reinforced by seeing more of the same thing.
those
Whatever
damn
side you're,
machine learning engineers, they suck. Oh wait, I'm
yes.
one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Calling myself.
Exactly. Those malicious AI agents out there. It's very difficult to get objective content anymore because whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, you're followed by algorithms. I think it's particularly difficult for young men if in whatever zone, whatever extreme they're in, the reinforcement they get, and they get pulled into more and more of the same content. Well, we're going to run out of time here shortly. A couple of things for Malestrum.com. We just linked our guide for the Gen Z male. We would appreciate if you would come in and subscribe to our site, our newsletter. We'll give you a free copy of it's brief but comprehensive guide for some resources and some good thinking points. We are on Substack and Instagram. Our next topic, and Griff, you tell me, we're going to dig deeper into artificial intelligence, what it really is, what it means. And the other topic is we're going to talk about young men who become violent. Sad example last week when some young man shot firemen that were coming to fight a fire. So we're going to dig into why that happens and why does it stereotypically occur with young men that are in their early 20s. Griff, I think it'd be very helpful if you could link a couple of informative YouTube content that you shared with me yesterday on how the algorithms really work and, how on either side you can get manipulated. So do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I do. I will try to be succinct because we could have another 20 episodes about this topic alone. But I just want to share that in addition to what we talked about within this conversation about the red pill, I think another cause of men feeling insecure and gravitating towards such content is our globalized world and jobs, dating, friendships, etc. And, as we've talked about, I believe in episode 1, that globalization does lead to potential opportunity, but also, in some ways more competition with, like, say, job roles. Entry level analyst or engineering roles oftentimes have 2,000 plus applicants now. So with that added competition comes more feelings of inadequacy, which in turn lead to more feelings of insecurity. Another example, social media, how, we compare ourselves to other people's highlight reels. It's not competition in the same way we apply to jobs, but it's a different kind of internal competition. I think all of these factors come together and lead to this hum of insecurity a lot of men feel, which in turn makes them and some women too, and other contexts gravitate towards these YouTube channels, these influencers that promote red pill content or self-improvement content. Yeah, I also am gravitated towards a subset of that content, but I try to find the most wholesome creators that try to lift people up versus drag other people down. That's what I aim to do. And we hope to be the same way on Maelstrom. We hope to be positive and not shy away from difficult conversations, but aim to bring people up, be supportive, kind, and helpful, and not scapegoating.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap this up because, as we said in the first episode, our goal is not to be political, but to be reporters. Thank you for spending time with us. Go to maelstrom.com and we'll see you soon.
See you next time.
See you next time.